Hello, my name's Robert Dean Steele, and today we're reading through and praying through Psalm 51. The background behind this particular psalm is that David had committed adultery with Bathsheba, and then to cover his sin, he had a note written to Joab that Uriah would be placed right at the beginning or in the middle of the war, and he would lose his life, which he did. And then David was exposed by Nathan the prophet, and David basically repented here in Psalm 51. And he says, "Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your compassion, blot out my transgressions." So David is looking to God's unfailing love, his mercy, and his compassion to blot out his sins. He says, "Wash away my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin." He knows that he has created a problem, and he needs the Lord to forgive him and also wash away his iniquity. "For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you and you only have I sinned and done what's evil in your sight." So he basically says, "Lord, I am fully aware of what I have done, and the guilt is ever before me. And also as well, Lord, I know that I have done evil in your sight." So when you speak, you prove right when you speak. "Surely I have been sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me." So he recognizes that there's a sin problem in his life, and he has a propensity toward sin, but he's also aware of the power of salvation. "Surely you desire truth in the inward parts. You teach me wisdom from the inmost place." He says, all of these things come from my heart, from my will and my emotions. I know what I should do, but I don't do it. That which I would not, that which I do, I wish I wouldn't done it, but I've already done. That's what Paul said in Romans chapter 7. He says, "Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow." Of course, hyssop was a reed that they used to pour on the mercy seat to basically cleanse from sin. He says, let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice." He says, "Lord, I know that only through salvation, joy and gladness have come. My sin and its exposure has crushed my inward parts." He says, "Hide your face from me, my sins, and blot out my iniquity." He is relying on God's grace, God's mercy, and God's love in this situation. Then he says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." He says, "Lord, I need a brand new heart. And Lord, I need to be renewed. And only you can do that." He's making a prayer. He's asking the Lord to do that today. Then he goes, "Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me." Basically, right now, he is feeling the full separation of he's had a relationship with God, but now he's feeling the guilt, the strain, and also as well, he's feeling the separation that he has from God. Then he says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation." That's what he's saying. "And grant me a willing spirit to sustain me." Lord, I need to have your salvation back in my life. And Lord, let me from this moment forward have a willingness to fall after you. Then I will teach transgressors your way, and sinners to turn back to you. He says, the outgrowth of this is that I am going to testify of the mess that I have made. You see, a mess can be turned into a message, and a test can turn into a testimony. He says, "Save me from blood and guilt, O God, the God who saves me, and my tongue will sing of righteousness." He says, "Lord, let me never do this again. I have been responsible for the death of another man, and Lord, I never want to do this again. I want to sing of your righteousness." As a worshiper of God, that's what he really wanted to do. Then he goes on to say, "Lord, open my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise." He says, "Lord, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell people about your goodness, especially about the fact that you saved me. You don't delight in sacrifice, or I'd bring it. You do not pleasure in burnt offerings." The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. He says, Lord, I would bring all the offerings and sacrifices to cleanse this. But Lord, what you're really looking for is a broken and contrite heart. We have to let go of our pride before we can actually acknowledge that we have sinned and that we need forgiveness. Then he goes on to say, in your good pleasure, make Zion prosper. Build the walls of Jerusalem. There will be righteous sacrifices, whole burnt offerings delight you, and bulls will be offered on your altar. He says, Lord, out of all of this, reestablish the city of David. Reestablish Jerusalem. I know that I made a huge mistake, but Lord, let's rectify this. Let's make it right, and let's go on from here. That is Psalm 51. We're reading and praying through the Psalms. My name is Robert Dean Steele.